Morning, guys. It's Thursday, June 5th, 5:25 a.m. Central Time. Grain markets are mixed this morning. July corn futures up 2 1/4 at 441. July soybeans down 3 1/4 at 1041 3/4. July Chicago wheat up 1 3/4 at 545. July Kansas City wheat down 1/4 cent at 540 1/4. July spring wheat down 1/4 cent at 623 1/4. We've got some crop problems in China, potentially. Let's start there.
So, parts of China's wheat crop have suffered due to severe drought. Last month, the average temperatures in China's key wheat growing provinces were the highest on record since 1961. The combination of extreme heat and dry conditions has led to yield losses of up to 50% in some areas, prompting farmers to harvest early to prevent further damage. Meanwhile, irrigated crops have been able to maintain average yields. According to JCI, a Shanghai based agricultural consulting firm, the overall decline in wheat production isn't expected to be significant. However, without official estimates, it remains too early to determine if China will need to boost wheat imports.
Yeah, we haven't seen any new production estimates from the private groups or really from, I don't think USDA has really acknowledged this either. And maybe they will in future reports. China is the world's top wheat producer in most years. They probably will be again this year. China is also the top wheat consumer domestically. So if the crop had significant problems, could China be pushed to additional imports? Maybe that's possible, although JCI says that this is not expected to be significant. So I'm assuming that means it's maybe not a widespread area. Maybe that's the deal. In related news, this was out overnight. China warns of more severe northern floods this summer. So they've got apparently drought in the south and wheat areas and flooding in the north, which are corn areas. And if you guys look at these production density maps, if you're watching on YouTube, the north is corn country, and that's where they're saying there could be floods this summer. More like south or that southeast, I guess, call it ports. More like east central part of China is wheat country, and that's where they're having the drought situation. So a multitude of crop problems. China has supposedly adequate stocks or more than adequate stocks of both crops, but that doesn't mean that imports couldn't spike a little bit. USDA is projecting that new crop corn and wheat imports will see a little bit of a bump versus this current marketing year, but still well below the levels that we saw in, say, 2020 through 2023. So this remains to be seen. I feel as if perhaps the corn issues in the north with the floods could be a bigger deal because it seems like the wheat, based on what the comments we're seeing from the private groups, just is not going to be a big deal. It's an isolated thing, I guess. But we'll see. We like to see China import some more corn and wheat from the U.S., especially because they haven't imported much of anything from us recently, aside from soybeans.
President Trump expressed frustration on Wednesday, calling Chinese President Xi Jinping extremely hard to make a deal with. The statement comes as trade talks have stalled between the two nations. The White House has indicated that the two leaders could speak later this week, although it remains unclear if a call has been officially scheduled. Trump has suggested that a call with Xi could help restart trade negotiations. Since the two sides agreed to a trade truce in mid May, both have accused each other of violating the terms of the deal.
I just wonder how long this is going to go on. As it relates to our crowd, China still has not bought any new crop soybean bushels from the United States. There's no commitments on the books. And typically they would start to buy new crop US soybeans around this time of year. Last year, I think they waited until July and they still ended up buying a ton of beans. I think as long as we're competitive, they're going to buy soybeans from the United States for that new crop time slot, post harvest, as they typically do. I guess that if it gets bad enough, maybe some stuff is shifted. But if I had to guess going out to 25, 26, China's still going to be the biggest importer of U.S. soybeans or biggest buyer of U.S. soybeans on the export market. But this kind of stuff just creates uncertainty. You look at the bean market, though. Does it appear as if the bean market is super interested in all this stuff? It really doesn't. It's been choppy, quiet. We're trading above price levels that a lot of people had predicted. A lot of people thought, oh, this U.S.-China trade thing, we're going to go back to $9 on the board. And we haven't done that. Not yet, at least.
Yesterday's ultra dry GFS forecast was probably wrong. The most recent run of the 8 to 14 day forecast offers drastically more rain for the U.S. Corn Belt versus yesterday's forecast. Based on GFS data, our friends at Crop Profit now estimate that U.S. corn areas will see 82% of their normal rainfall during the 8 to 14 day period versus yesterday's estimate of just 22%. Still, both the Euro and GFS models offer drier than normal conditions for much of the central and western US Corn Belt during the extended period.
I ran through. So when we talked about that map yesterday, I probably took like at least a minute to do a disclaimer on why one run of one weather model may not be accurate. And people were like giving me shit about it. Like, Joe, I'm like, did you not listen to the video? Like, I just can't with some of you guys, I just can't win. It's, why do I even do this damn show? I don't know.
I don't
In
know.
any case, so yeah, the GFS has shifted toward a little bit more normal rainfall. Although when you look at this 8 to 14 day, you look at the 1 to 7, it's like the rainfall is skewed toward the east where they don't need it nearly as much. Whereas in Iowa and Nebraska, they do need the rain, and it's going to be drier there. And that's not just the GFS. That's the Euro, which is on my screen now. And then you go out to the 8 to 14 day Euro. Okay, maybe a little bit wetter for the West. So I don't know. I still see. I guess the way I'm looking at weather right now, and my opinion changes like on the hour. Um, I think that there's enough risk of lingering dryness in the West to maybe avoid like a collapse in prices right now. But at the same time, when you look at the expected precip, like maybe there's enough rain in enough places to avoid a sharp rally. And we're just kind of stuck here in purgatory, just waiting to see what's going to happen, late in June or early in July. I guess that's my take on it right now. My take will be different tomorrow. Over the last 72 hours, we've had some decent rains across, again, parts of Nebraska, parts of Iowa, southern Minnesota, Wisconsin, certainly into Illinois. Missouri was very wet. Eastern Kansas, very wet. We've got some rain on the radar again this morning, moving into Indiana and probably Ohio, where it has been too wet. So a lot of stuff going on with weather. But yeah, that ultra dry GFS we talked about yesterday, probably wrong the way that it looks.
If you guys haven't checked out our premium content, you sure need to do so. Can you tell our viewers about some of our recent premium videos, Joe?
You did a chart with Brian yesterday, and I watched it, and it was very good. The soybean stuff and the analog versus 2018 was very good. I also thought the wheat charts in yesterday's video were excellent, and there was some stuff that Brian is watching that I would suggest that you watch as well. I talked about when corn rallies happen late earlier in the week. As I mentioned, the average seasonal peak for December corn futures is June 8th or June 9th in the period dating back both 30 years and 15 years on average, but that's the average. And sometimes the peak happens later than that. And I talked about some of your recent years, like post-ethanol era, in which that was the case. Pete Meyer's doing Sunday weather updates for us. Those go out at 6 p.m. Central Time on Sundays, an hour before the open. It'll give you the lay of the land for the week. What did the forecast do over the weekend? Did it shift? Is it bullish? Is it bearish? What are Pete's thoughts on the market as it relates to weather on Sunday? These are almost always our most popular videos during the summer. We run them from early June through the mid part of July. So every Sunday night, that'll be out. If you guys want to see the premium stuff, go to standardgrain.com. You can sign up this morning. This is a $50 per month subscription. You can cancel at any time. This is a content only service. We just want to send you info. We don't want to talk to you on the phone. We don't want to sell you crop insurance. We don't want to do your brokerage. So help us out, support independent media. We don't have sponsors, guys. You are our sponsors. Premium subs are our sponsors. And premium subs, we love you to death. If you are not a premium sub, give this deal a shot this morning.
U.S. officials have charged 2 Chinese nationals with smuggling a harmful crop-damaging pathogen into the country. Fusarium graminearum is a fungal pathogen that causes head blight, also known as scab, in crops such as wheat. It produces toxins that cause vomiting, liver damage, and reproductive defects in both livestock and humans. It's known for causing billions of dollars in global agricultural losses each year. Both individuals being charged had previously studied the fungus as university students in China. In response to the charges, China's foreign ministry said it was not aware of the case, but emphasized that Chinese citizens abroad are expected to comply with local laws.
So the Chinese government says we had nothing to do with this, and that's
Of
probably
course.
true. That's probably true, right? And they probably didn't have anything to do with it. If they did have something to do with it, why? What's the motivation?
To hurt our crops here in the U.S. I think,
Okay, so I'm thinking of this in two different ways. So China buys a lot of crops on the export market, right?
yeah.
So if they were to hurt crops in the United States, and this is probably not what's happening at all, but just for the purposes of conversation,
hmm
um, if they were to hurt crops in the U.S., we're a huge producer. It's going to make their import prices for a lot of things a lot more expensive, right?
Yep, that's
That's one
correct.
angle. That's one
Y-
angle.
yeah, and I
The
see where
other
you're. Yeah, go ahead.
the other angle is they have massive stockpiles supposedly of corn and wheat in China, and it would make those stockpiles more valuable if they hurt our crops.
Hmm.
I don't know.
I,
I
I
don't get what the motivation is.
I don't know. I just have a hard time believing that someone has pure intentions coming into the U.S. bringing a crop damaging pathogen, but that's just.
I'm not saying they had good intentions. I'm just saying, like, what's the if you're to take 5 steps forward and say this was the Chinese government being involved, what exactly was their motivation here? I guess that's my question.
I
I
don't
don't know.
know, but I'm sure our viewers will have a lot of thoughts on this.
I got 200 text messages and emails about this yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
People were apparently very excited about this story. I don't see the reason to be excited, but hey, whatever floats your boat, guys.
Yeah. U.S. ethanol production jumped to a record weekly high last week. Weekly output of 1.1 million barrels per day was up 4.6% on the week and up 3.1% versus the same week last year. Ethanol stocks also set an all-time high for the week at 24.4 million barrels. The print was up 1% compared to the previous week and up 6% compared to the same week last year. According to Reuters data, U.S. ethanol production margins have firmed over the last week.
All right, so that's a record seasonal production print for ethanol production. So ethanol production is super strong. Exports are outpacing everybody's expectations. Yet we've got old versus new crop corn spreads like basically trading even. It doesn't make any sense. The board is cheap. It doesn't make any sense to a lot of people, especially old crop futures. What are we missing here? We've talked about this at length. It seems like every other day. Like, what are we missing in the corn market? Why is it not acting the way that it should be acting with record ethanol production, super strong exports? USDA tells us, last year's crop isn't quite what we thought it was. I don't know. There's a number of theories out there. One of them is just that, the weather's good. The market thinks there's going to be 96 million acres of corn and we don't have a weather problem. And therefore, there's no need to chase these old crop bushels higher. Some of the other thoughts out there, maybe USDA is overstating feed usage. Maybe that's part of it. With ethanol, one thing that does happen on a yearly basis is that efficiency improves, meaning that they're able to produce more gallons of ethanol with less bushels of corn. So just because ethanol production is up does not necessarily mean that corn usage for ethanol is up by the exact same percentage. You could run into a situation where the ethanol yields are so good that maybe we're just not using as much corn. In any case, it feels like there's more corn out there than perhaps what USDA has let on. And the government, of course, has been wrong before. So I'll just be curious to see how all of this kind of validates when we get into, harvest and we figure out what the real story was.
Despite federal layoffs, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as NOAA, is fully staffed with forecasters. According to U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, NOAA is fully staffed with forecasters and scientists ahead of what is expected to be a busy hurricane season. NOAA, which includes the National Weather Service, lost about 10% of its workforce when the Trump administration cut federal jobs earlier this year. Because of this, at least 6 National Weather Service offices were forced to halt routine weather balloon launches, which are vital for collecting data used in forecasting models. The agency was granted an exemption from a federal hiring freeze and is working to fill key positions like forecasters and radar technicians.
Our crowd, some of them, they hate weather forecasters and they hate the USDA and they hate grain market analysts because all of those people are responsible for these shitty corn prices, right? It's their fault. It's not their fault. The government weather forecasters, I think, are a good thing. They save lives. They predict tornadoes, that sort of stuff, hurricanes. They're very much necessary. Are weather forecasters wrong sometimes? Of course they are. Nobody can predict the weather. Come on, guys. What did cattle do yesterday?
Cattle futures were higher. Live cattle were $1.57 to $2.67 higher. Feeder saw gains ranging from $1.75 up to $2.72. Box beef was mostly unchanged. Choice was down 28 cents at $3.65.16, and select was up 20 cents at $3.56.72.
Outside market's pretty quiet this morning. Stocks are up a little bit. Treasury's up a little bit. US dollar's about flat. Gold's up 21 bucks. Crude oil's up 31 cents in the July WTI at 63.17. Have a great day, guys. We'll be back on Friday.